Blackjack is pretty fun, but there's not a lot of risk involved if you lose, and there's not a lot of skill to it either. So what if we changed that? 21 is like blackjack, except you die sometimes. Actually, now that I'm saying that, this video is probably going to be age restricted. The rules are simple. Try to get to 21 and you win. Go over and you lose. Under 21, then you better hope that your opponent isn't higher than you, or else you lose. Card draw isn't exactly like how it is in blackjack. You have the numbered cards 1 through 11. Those are the only cards in the deck, and there are no duplicates of those numbers. If your opponent has the 4 card, you will not be able to draw another 4 card. Now for the bet system, which is a bit more complicated. This counter here shows how many points you and your opponent are away from losing. The bottom scores your counter and the top scores your opponent's. There are a bunch of different game modes for this, but the most common one is Rising. This is where the bet increases by 1 each round. The bet can be modified by trump cards. Trump cards are basically like power-ups. They can give you an advantage, but they can also give your opponent an advantage. There are a ton of trump cards, and I'm not going to go over all of them, but here are some of the groups of trump cards. Numbered card trumps. These cards help you draw specific cards that you need to win, or just draw you cards in a special way. Trump draw trumps. Yeah, that's the best name we came up with. These cards help you draw trump cards. They aren't too useful, but they can help you out sometimes. Bet trumps. These cards modify the bet in some way or another. You can also use them to block destructive counter cards from reaching other trump cards. Limit trumps. These change the limit that you are both going to for the round. For example, this can be used to switch the limit to 24 if you draw a bit over the 21 you were aiming for. Counter trumps. These are used to counter limit cards or counter bet cards if you're in a tough situation. They're mainly offensive cards to play reactively. Overpowered trumps. These cards are very overpowered and can often win games for you. These cards include Return, which gets rid of the last card that you drew. Remove, which gets rid of the last card that your opponent drew. Perfect Draw, which gives you the best card to draw in any situation that you're in. However, it won't give you a card that's already on the table. Refresh, which removes all of your cards, then gives you 2 new cards that are available from the deck. Bless, which prevents you from dying. However, if the bet is under what's required for you to die, it will not block that damage. I know that was a lot, but the trump cards are a really big part of the game. They can determine who wins or who loses a game a lot of the time. After all of that context, we can finally play the game. Starting off, you're not going to have a lot of trump cards, and the bet's going to be very low, so there won't be a lot of risk. Draw more cards until you get around 17 or above, then pass. Do this for a few more rounds, maybe doing some stuff with trump cards in between. Round 4 is when things really pick up. Start using more trump cards and prioritize winning a lot more here. Try counting what cards are on the table to see what cards aren't available to draw from the deck. This is where you can go from winning to losing in a round or 2. At round 7 or 8 is when the end game starts. Not all games last for this long, but if they do, both of you will have a ton of trump cards. You're going to need to do everything you can to win these rounds, because once you start losing here, you have a deep hole to get yourself out of. You can't take any chances, assume your opponent is always winning, and do whatever you can to stop them. Now that we're done with the basic strategy, we can get into the badges. Approaching Hell just requires you to join the game, nothing special. 21 requires you to play a match, again, pretty easy. Maniac requires you to win 5 times, which took my editor Blazer a while to do, but overall isn't that hard. Unlucky requires you to lose 5 times. I wouldn't really go for this badge, if anything you'll get it naturally over time. Blessed requires you to survive using the Blessed trump card that I talked about earlier. The Blessed trump card actually has a lower chance at being drawn compared to the other trumps, so this is mainly just luck based. In 2 seconds has you draw both an 11 and a 10 as your first 2 cards, which is about a 1% chance. Hopelessly has you lose with 20 trump cards in hand, which can easily be done in a custom match where there are a ton of trump card draws. Intensely has you win or lose a game that has lasted for 30 minutes or longer. To do this, you either need to cheese it with a friend, or be really good and lucky and face someone who is also really good and lucky. We went over the tips, the badges, now let's go over the tricks. You can intentionally underdraw to below 18, then use the go for 27 card to trick your opponent into drawing to 27. Finally, use a go for 17 card to screw over your opponent and massively overdrawing them. It sounds pretty simple, but you can just bluff. Make them think that you have 21 even if you don't, and hopefully this will cause them to draw more and then bust. If the bet turns 0, either by you or your opponent using shield trump cards, you can purposefully overdraw and attempt to draw more trump cards. If you want to protect a limit card or bless card so your opponent can't destroy it, place a bet card in front of it so that you create a barrier that one destroy trump card can't deal with. If the bet is so high that no matter how many shield cards you play you still lose, you can play most of your 1-up cards so that if you win, you hurt your opponent even more. Don't use the friendship trump card unless you really need to. It's the only trump card in the game that always benefits your opponent more than you, so only use it if you really need more trump cards. If you use a numbered trump card and don't get the card that you want, then you know that that number card is somewhere on the board, which can be used to figure out what hidden card your opponent has. That's all the game has for now, but it's still being updated, such as cosmetics in the shop and tweaks to the different game modes. If you want to check this game out, the link to it will be in the description. If you have any questions or if there's anything that I missed, let me know in the comments, and good luck.